Hello everyone. I have Objective 4 on Chapter 18, which is describing the differences between top-down and bottom-up approaches to assessment, measurement, and evaluation. So these both are very similar. So a therapist using these different approaches will have many of the same assessment tools, but the timing will be a little bit different, which will make sense in a second. But a therapist using a bottom-up approach will begin by assessing, measuring, and evaluating performance skills and client factors, whereas a therapist using top-down will usually end there. So for bottom-up, we're going to start by looking at performance skills and client factors that interfere with participation. So let's say we're an OT in a hospital, and we have an 8-year-old boy named Harley who comes in, who just got into an accident, and he's in the ICU. Using the bottom-up approach, we might notice that he's having some difficulty with finger dexterity, so we might start by working on isolated finger movements, and those would in hope have a generalized positive impact on fine motor skills that he might need in school to cut, to paint, to eat. So the bottom-up approach fits easily into settings where the traditional medical model is used, because we're assessing an individual for short hospital stays to target a particular movement, so finger dexterity in Harley. And in a top-down approach, we're starting with relatively broad categories of daily life or activity. So when we notice a problem in performance of an activity or task, the therapist will then seek to identify the cause of the problem, so those more specific skills. So for this, let's say we have an 8-year-old girl named Rebecca who's in the 3rd grade, and an OT in the school system comes in and notices that Rebecca's having some difficulty writing neatly and cutting with scissors neatly and feeding herself without spilling some things here and there. Because the OT is noticing those things, she might start looking into specific skills that Rebecca might be struggling with. And so then she might, because she noticed these difficulties in Rebecca's occupation, then start looking at difficulties in finger dexterity. So top-down fits well into settings where context is critical, so assessing students in schools. So I have 2 examples just to make it a little bit easier. So the top-down approach is going to start with the occupation. So we started by just assessing Rebecca in the school, and then we narrowed it down and ended by looking at specific skills. So why is Rebecca having trouble cutting and eating and writing? Whereas in the bottom up, we started by looking at specific skills. So we started with looking at Harley's finger dexterity, and then in turn, we can expect that when we're working on isolated finger movements, that it might increase his fine motor skills when he goes back to school and is writing and eating and cutting with scissors. So they're both very similar, but just think of 2 triangles and kind of flip-flop them. So hopefully that helps. Thank you.